Good morning, everyone. So this is the second session this morning. Please welcome Louise, Hanna. She's up from Sydney. She's from Excite Cyber, and today she's talking about Incident Response 2.0. So please welcome Louise.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's been such a great conference so far, and it's great to see a lot of friendly faces, people that I know, and new faces. I hope we can all meet up and have a chat later on. My name is Louise, Hanna, and I'm the General Manager at Excite Cyber. I have been in the IT industry for more than 30 years, and you think, what? Yes, I started when I was 2 years old. So no, not really, but I have been in the industry since the early 90s. So yes, it has been over 30 years. I started at New South Wales Parliament, and I actually started in law and thought that's not what I want to do. So I switched and went into IT. Started on the service desk and quickly thought, yeah, I think I can do this. I like the IT stuff. So I went and studied at TAFE, moved across to the network section, and I was, of course, the only girl at university when I started to do the bigger courses. And then I eventually became the manager of IT for New South Wales Parliament. And I was that for 15 years, for the last 15 years when I was at Parliament. I've been through every change in the IT industry, everything, from when cloud wasn't even a thing. I remember the very first time we got the internet at Parliament. We were all huddled around one computer, and the modem was making all those weird noises, and it took like about 20 minutes for a page to download. It was crazy, crazy times. Obviously, we have evolved. There's my slides. So, I think I have to go back one. So, I've had a lot of experience in the industry. I moved from Parliament then to become a consultant, and I learnt GRC, Governance, Risk and Compliance. I thought I was learning something new, but it was obviously something I already applied when I was at New South Wales Parliament. We were audited all the time, so we had to make sure everything was in line. We had to make sure our security was tight. So I had a good background and a good experience. And I also understood, because I worked at Parliament as a consultant going into other organisations, I could understand their pain and understand what they needed. So which lent to the experience. So here I am today, talking about the importance of incident response. We rely so much on technology, and as I said, we've seen it just go from computers and modems to the most crazy technology that we have today. Not only do we have to look after the IT part of our business, which is managing data and supporting business functions, we also now have to look after OT, which is operational technology. That's around the hardware, CCTV cameras, power, water, things like that, lifts, all of those sort of things, and working the security around all the OT infrastructure. So incident response is, if you can be good at incident response and quick and effective, you can minimise downtime, damage to your organisation, and it can protect your reputation. Without a robust incident response plan, an organisation risks severe data breaches, financial losses, legal liability, and erosion of customer trust. Traditional versus modern incident response. Now, the traditional or the historic incident response relied on, and still does, and is still very important, your executive incident response team, and also having an incident response plan that is robust and tested everybody knowing what they need to do in an incident when an incident happens. Then there was some things you did in the background, like you did backups, making sure your backups were robust, making sure you did patch management was really good, and also making sure you had antivirus on every computer. And that was kind of it. And it was reactive. It was always a reactive thing. And it was something that could happen a lot more than it can with the modern incident response. So modern incident response encompasses the traditional, and it also brings into it the proactive, being proactive. So things like threat hunting, things like continuous monitoring, intelligence sharing, those sort of things. This evolves, and we have to include all the teams within our organisation. It's not just on IT, it's on the legals, it's on communications, and it's the executive leadership as well. So it's not just on IT. The rapid growth of cyber threats. As we all know, these ones here, ransomware, supply chain attacks, and AI. So AI is the newest, the latest, and the greatest. So threat actors are now using AI-driven threats, which are ahead of our technology. So they can get in there and get the AI apps and AI technology to get ahead of the game and get ahead of the new technology. We have ransomware, which we've had for quite some time. Ransomware has become more than just a small piece of malware that sits on the network that can be eradicated, or, once you've unlocked the files or you can get access to your files, it's gone. Sometimes they put, several pieces of ransomware throughout your organisation. Also, ransomware is so advanced today that it can be in your system for about 6 months before it even attacks, because you don't know it's there. And supply chain attacks, like the SolarWinds attack that happened recently, it affects multiple organisations at any one time. So they're the latest and the greatest. Some of the attacks that I've been through throughout my career, starting with Parliament House, I think we must have been one of the very first organisations to have a ransomware attack. It was 20 years ago, and we started to get calls on the service desk. Our files are locked, and when we double click on them, it comes up with, you need to pay $1,000 to unlock this file. And I thought, what is that? I had no idea what it was, no idea. We'd never heard of it 20 years ago. So we all raced up to the computers, and there was about 40 people affected. Luckily, it was Parliament House, because I'd been through so much with that organisation. I structured the network in a way that it was very segmented, because it was a very unique environment. We were hostile inside. We had political party against political party. So when this attack hit, it only affected 40 people. So I was lucky. Also, we were really vigilant about our backups, something not many people are vigilant about. They don't understand. I remember learning at university, one of the very first things we were told, your network is only as good as your backup, because if you can't restore it, you have nothing. And it's so true. So I was lucky enough that our backups were really good, and the reason they were good was we had lots of members of parliament, and they had lots of multiple staff, and quite often there were disgruntled staff that would leave and delete everything the member had, even their email. So I was forever restoring stuff. We were forever. So I had one person dedicated just to backups. So I was lucky. We only lost a couple of hours' work for those 40 people. We blew away their machines, put our standard operating environment back on to each machine, and then restored, and they only lost a couple of hours. So we were lucky. But still, I didn't know what ransomware was, and I didn't know what we were dealing with. Another great experience I had recently, actually, was with the ports. I did some work with one of the companies that owns about 45 ports across the world. And he hired me to come and talk to every CEO of each of his ports. So he flew them all into the main country and flew me in, and I taught them roundtable exercises. And it was in response to, they obviously had ports in Australia. They had two ports in Australia, ports in America, ports in Europe, lots of ports in Asia. And he did this in the response to an attack that happened on the port in Australia. And I hadn't realised until I did this job what had happened. So the threat actor had infiltrated their inventory system, so they basically didn't know. They had thousands and thousands of shipping containers sitting on the ports, and they had no idea what was in them, who they were for, where they were meant to be. So it was catastrophe. And I kind of remember the time it happened. It was a few years after COVID, and it was just before Christmas. And I remember being in the supermarket, and I was shopping, and I'm going, where's all the things on the shelves? Are we going into COVID again? Do I have to hoard toilet paper again? Like, I was like, really? What's going on? But what we all probably didn't realise, there was a hack at the ports, and a lot of all the stuff that goes into the supermarkets was sitting there on the docks at the ports. And it took them 3 months to manually inventory every single one of those shipping containers. Crazy. So if it was bigger, if that attack could be bigger, it could render our nation, it could do so much damage when we can't get the things that we need. So that was interesting. The more interesting one was the South American port CEO he told us the story. He said many years ago, in like about 2011, I think it was, he said that for 3 years, they had no idea there was a threat actor in the South American port. And that threat actor was doing drug deals. So he was basically manipulating the inventory and shipping drugs in and out of the port of South America. And it was crazy. And the only reason they caught him was because they had a malfunction of the inventory system and it was shut down. So they had to do a manual inventory of the containers and found several containers full of drugs. So when the system came back up, when they did some further investigation, they found out there was a small piece of malware that gave the threat actor complete control of the inventory system so he could manipulate drugs going in and out of the country. So it's pretty heavy stuff. Another one, and there's a reason for these examples, which I will tell you in a moment. Another one was probably about 18 years ago when I was at Parliament, and New South Wales Parliament's in the city, the top end of the CBD in Sydney. And we had a power outage for 3/4 of the CBD, and it was probably about 18 years ago. We were lucky because we had diesel generators that supplied power to the hospital next door and also the library on the other side of us. And you think, why would you need to supply power to the library? Well, the state library had books that were worth millions of dollars, and that power needed to keep the security systems and the air conditioning for those books intact. So we were okay, but the rest of Sydney wasn't. And 18 years ago, Commonwealth Bank, their head office was CBD. Same with Westpac Bank, same with NAB. So it rendered them it crippled them for a half a day. They lost hundreds of millions of dollars in just that one power outage, and it was one portion of the grid. And also it rendered the whole trains and bus system, it was just chaos. It was just total chaos in the city for half a day. About 3 months later, the terrorist task force was formed in the New South Wales Police Force, and I became part of that, and so did the head of IT for the Opera House. And they chose all the heads of IT from all the prime targets because that was actually a terrorist attack. So they found the people, and the people that did it were testing the power grid to see how they could bring it down and to see how successful they could be so that they could do a bigger attack later down the track. So from that brought in a lot of critical infrastructure, really delving into security and embracing security. Now they have to be IPART assessed. It's just so much more rigorous, the things that they do to keep safe. And that was all kind of stemmed from that. The AI-driven threats. Oh no, I talked about those. So the reason I brought up those attacks was because cyber attacks don't necessarily have to be about money. It can be about someone that's disgruntled. It can be about someone that's trying to get money from your organisation. It could be about a terrorist attack. It could be just someone trying to, render your company helpless, or just because they can. So who knows what the reasons are. So with the modern day incident response, it's about being proactive instead of reactive. So being proactive means you need to look at things like threat hunting and continuous monitoring, the integration of automated AI systems to help you. They can help you look at the logs and disseminate what's happening within your system. But I must warn you, with AI, things that people are not doing is making sure if you are implementing AI into your organisation, make sure it is compliant and you have looked at the risks around using that AI application, no matter what it is, even if it's for IR or for something else within your organisation. There is a whole plethora of ISO frameworks that have come out recently around AI and AI risk. And you need to make sure you apply that into your organisation when you do adopt AI solutions. And so I'm a big advocate of that. Threat intelligence, knowing what's out there, who's getting hit, what organisations are being hit. The whole ransomware thing 20 years ago was what? It was like such a weird thing to happen. I had no idea. We didn't have threat intelligence back then, or if we did, I didn't have access to it. And so it's so important knowing what's happening and so that you're aware of what's going on and what's out there and how to protect yourself against it. Simulated attacks and penetration testing. So good to do that. It's even good to do that when you want to prove to your bosses that why security is important. If you do a simulated attack, it brings to light everything that can happen and the consequences of an attack on your organisation. Penetration testing is a no-brainer. Everybody should be doing that at least once a year. And if you make major changes to your organisation, you should do it every time you make a change to your organisation. So, preparing for tomorrow's cybersecurity challenges. It's all about people, process and technology. Now, I'm in GRC, or was in GRC, I'm now the General Manager. When I was in GRC, it's all about people, process, technology. That's what the risk is all about. So it's about making sure you have a good security posture within your environment, making sure you're aligned or certified in any of the frameworks that are out there. ISO 27001, you can obtain a certification, and that's really good to put on your website to say, I'm certified in ISO 27001, or I align to NIST, so that people have confidence that you take care and that you actually care about the security of the data and the business that you have. And if you can't afford to certify in ISO, align to it. It's easy to align to 27001 and make a roadmap. If you can't afford to have everything in place, you put it on the risk register and you put it on a roadmap till you can afford it, and make sure you know what your pain points are going to be. So you should always conduct regular risk assessments, know where your data is, what your pain points are, what keeps you awake at night, establishing the clear governance and policies. The governance is the whole ISO. You may be mandated to do governance like CSP234 if you're a financial institute, or if you might need PCI compliance if you take credit cards or swipe cards. So you have to make sure you know. And now with the Privacy Act, it's even more so. You have to look after the data, people's data. You're mandated by the government. Some of the also making sure that your staff are aware of security. The basics, passwords, look out for phishing, that sort of thing. And you might think, they know that. They don't, they just sometimes are so busy, click on links. The attacks are so sophisticated these days, the phishing attacks. I got one the other day from my CEO, the boss, and the big boss, and he sent me an email. I need this really quickly. And I was tempted to just go bang, bang and click on it. And I thought, nope. And I stopped and I went and I had a look, and it was a phishing attack. It was an internal phishing attack, but it was a phishing attack. So you have to be very careful of that. So how do we bring ourselves into the proactive part of incident response? So it's things like having a SIEM. A SIEM looks at all the logs of all the major security devices you have within your organisation, and to see if there's anyone trying to get in or anyone inside your network. So it's a really good tool, and there is 1,000 different products out there that give you that solution. Endpoint detection and response, that's for your PCs, as well as also every device on the network, but the PCs as well, to monitor the devices for suspicious activity. Threat intelligence platforms, so important to keep everybody aware. It's not just IT, hopefully other people take interest in it too, to see who has been hacked recently, like the gossip of who's been taken down now. But it's really about what threat actors are out there and what are the latest and the greatest viruses that are there. Training and simulation to improve your organisation readiness. I have conducted a lot of tabletop exercises, so important for the executives, because they don't realise it, but it's now law that they're the ones that are legally responsible for an incident. So Optus and Medibank Private, it was the head honchos that were responsible for that, and can be now liable to pay massive fines if their organisation falls under an incident and it's not responded to correctly under the guidelines. So tabletop exercises should be conducted every single year. And really, the best reason for that is because then they know exactly what they need to do at any one time throughout an incident. I worked at a school fairly recently, or a couple of years ago, actually, really large school in Sydney. When I drove up and I parked my car, it was giant. The grounds were so extensive. It was, one of the big private schools, and they asked for a tabletop, and they had the principal, obviously, who was the incident response manager, and the heads of each department. They were great. They were a really great team. It was one of the best tabletops I've done, because quite often egos get in the way, and it's an art form to get the egos to do what they need to do and get them to think that it was their idea. So there's a bit of an art form in that. But when you don't have the egos in the room, it makes it quite simple. And so everybody was great. And we even changed the incident response plan to reflect some of the changes and some of the differences that we came up with in the round table. Instead of this person doing that, this one should do that. Or this should be done, we don't need to do that, that sort of stuff. So we updated the incident response plan, everything was great. The principal, 3 weeks later, called me and said, Louise, we were hacked. And guess what? We did the incident response with the executives and it took the fear out of it. Because we'd practiced with you, it took the fear. We all knew what we had to do. Everything was done really quickly. It was contained. And it was something really important too, because the threat actor had put a ransomware, so encrypted all the kids' health information, the mental health and physical health information that they had at the school, which is really important, and really important to make sure that that wasn't out there on the dark web. So, you know, we helped them look to make sure they didn't have the data, that they'd only locked it, and they had taken my advice and made sure backups were great, so they just restored everything and everything was fine. But taking that fear out of the whole equation was really key to them being successful. So that builds the confidence when they're handling incidents. I think I have finished a bit early. So I'm wondering, I actually have one more thing. The most important thing that I tell everybody about incident response, before you do anything, if an incident happens within your organisation, if you need help, if you need to engage with a company to come in and technically help you with the incident response, like a technical incident responder, stop and think and make the decision. Do you want someone to come in, fix it, get you back up and running as quick as possible? Or the other scenario is, do you want someone to come in, fix it, find out who it is, and then track them down and take them to court? If it's the first one, make sure your incident responder is a great technical person that has handled that sort of incident before. So that's my advice. Make sure they're not just a consultant. Like, I know I couldn't go in and do that. I'm not technical enough to go in and clean and find what a threat actor has done. So make sure you've got the right people doing it. And if it's the second one and you want to take them to court, make sure you have proper incident response, digital forensics incident response. Because not only will they find the digital forensic path that the threat actor has gone, they will find the person, but they will gather the evidence in a way that can be presented to court. So that is super important. You aren't to touch your network until you work that out first, because if you do things to the network before you bring in a digital forensics person, it may compromise what happens in court. So that's my key takeaway for most people. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. And if you have any questions?
Well, actually, first of all, for your questions, I'll give you a gift from AUSCERT, some Lego. And we're actually a little bit early, but that's okay. Maybe everyone's hungry. Louise loves to take questions over lunch and stuff like that outside. So please thank Louise for a great talk. Yeah.